Hey guys, it's around 10 o'clock at night and I'm recording. Sometimes the juices are just flowing at different times and you got to give it a go. So I think that first off, that says something that's really important. We have the opportunity to create our creative playgrounds. And, for me, this podcast is a way for me to create. It's a place where I get to have fun. I get the ability to express myself. And so it's just so important to have that safe space. I'm not going to get too into that in this episode, but just to say that if you don't have that safe space of creativity, if you don't have that ability to just like go wild, enjoy, have your canvas, have your paint, I think you're really missing out on an important aspect of life. In this episode, I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to tell you guys more of my story. And what I want to really convey in this is how important it is to reclaim your story. How important it is that you find the fire in your story. So let me take a step back. I was born in San Mateo, California. I grew up in the Bay Area. I love the Bay. It's one of my favorite areas on this planet, and just a beautiful area. Growing up, I was put in gymnastics when I was really young, and I had a great family. Growing up, I lived with a family of 7. I had my grandparents in my house, and my parents, and my brother and sister, and it was just a great house to be in. But when you're young, you don't always necessarily understand all the conflicts, all the issues, and you just kind of assume the best. At least I did. So growing up, I did not have the perfect life, but I had a really great life. We were middle class. Lived in a nice home. I got, of course, to be put in school and through gymnastics, had a lot of friends, and it was really great. The biggest traumatic point in my life early was a transition, moving from California to Vegas. What I did not understand in my family was that underneath all of the great things that were happening, we were running into a lot of financial issues. And that created a lot of stress for me because all of a sudden, when I was now a teenager, I had to suddenly move from California to Las Vegas, and I didn't really understand why. Now later, I understand that we were actually having a lot of financial issues, and so we moved as a way to kind of save money, right? So I lost basically all of my friends in the West Coast, or at least in California, and then moved to Vegas. This was now my sophomore, junior year of high school. So kind of a weird stage to move when, you've already established your place in high school. What people don't know about me is I'm actually extremely shy, and even though I create content, it was very hard for me to open up my shell. In fact, I was basically a loser junior year and senior year in high school. I'm a really nice guy. I'm super social, all that stuff now. But back then, I just couldn't muster up the courage to open up and speak. I could not open up my mouth. I wouldn't talk to people. I felt uncomfortable. And the first few weeks of school in my junior year of high school, I had the opportunity to introduce myself, make my name, do whatever, and I just didn't talk. And so I sat at the table and I was quiet. And I got put in some freshman classes because I had to make up certain classes for my high school. And I just never got things moving. Okay. Now fast forward a little bit. I'm finishing my senior year in high school. Now I'm looking at colleges. I wanted to compete D1 in men's gymnastics. And so I am now moving forward and I'm looking at schools. At this point, I felt like I wanted to kind of get away from my family a little bit. Because I wanted to really develop my own experience. So I was looking a little bit at the East Coast. I was looking at other schools. And the school I eventually chose was in the East Coast at Temple University. Love Temple. But around that time, again, there were some things happening in my family I didn't understand. They didn't really talk a lot, and they kept a lot of financial secrets from us. They didn't tell us how we were actually doing. And so all of a sudden, I find out that basically my family has no money and they need to leave the country. So essentially, kind of a theme in my life is that at different points in my life, I lost all my friends. I lost my friends again, moving from the West Coast to the East Coast, and I couldn't come back. And then at the age of 17, when I'm about to go to college, I basically lose my family from the United States. And now I'm changing into a new environment in college. when I started college, even though I was making friends and I started D1 in gymnastics and I had a friend group, I got severely depressed. I was so depressed that I fell into what would be called pseudodementia. I had memory problems. I couldn't think. I had a hard time sleeping. I had very weird nightmares. I had difficulties pulling out words from my head. I had a hard time speaking. This was nothing like me. I had this experience for about 6 months to 7 months of my freshman year of college, and it was pretty debilitating. I had been always a great student, and suddenly I was not able to even think, and I had poor grades. I wouldn't say the worst grades, but I was basically almost failing a bunch of classes. That was not like me. I mean, my GPA was in the twos, and that's, again, not like me. So clearly kind of debilitating, a huge stressor. I remember when I finally did meet my family internationally and went to go visit them, I was bawling. I was bawling my eyes out. I could not handle the fact of me being separated from them for so long. It was pretty terrible. So that's a big theme for me, the family piece, losing people in my life, the cycles of change, of losing people. But that's a part of my story. And when I started medical school again, I lost all my friends that I had in college, and they were like my mini family. And I started crying again. I was so upset because those transition points are so hard when you don't have your family close. So family has always been a huge component of my life. It was always the most important thing. I was told that it was the most important thing that I should cultivate, I should keep together, and yet mine felt like it was taken away. And then all my friends who I had developed as family members were also taken away. So I had these spaces where I was alone. But now I'm going to tell you the truth. The truth is that for every single adversity, you have an opportunity to reclaim your story and change the script in which you think about it. To me now, every loss that I had was a space for me to grow as an independent human being who developed skills. I learned so much about life. I learned so much about gaining strength. I learned so much about learning to make friends in different communities. I was able to go to different families' houses during major holidays. I could see the life of how other people lived. And so I understood what it meant to see different people, how they operate, and I learned so much. I grew so much strength through that process. I had to find me. I had to build my internal resilience. I am an independent and strong man, and now I've gained so much skills, so much agency, and so much power in my life because of that. That story is what drives me. And now I feel like I'm the one who can care and who can give and who can love others in a better way because I have grown in my independence. I can't tell you what my story would be like if something had changed along the way, but what I can say is I have to own my story now. In fact, I look at it as a celebration because every day I do good in the world, every day I grow, every day I give, every day I love a little bit more. That is a celebration of where I've come from. My family is still important to me. I give my parents a call all the time. I call my brother, I call my sister, and it's just so important to have those contacts and connect with them. But that story, that reclamation of the story, rewriting the story, understanding that wherever we come from, today is a new day, that we can rewrite the past and make today better, that we can say that the past doesn't control us, that we can say that, we've grown, that we've overcome, that is incredibly powerful. Now, I know that my story is not the worst. I mean, there are some other parts to it that I don't feel comfortable talking about. And I claim that, but my story in some ways for me was my difficulty, was my struggle. Okay. And everyone has it differently. I'm thankful that I didn't live in too much of an unsafe area, that I was able ultimately to have a lot of good things in my life. I did have to fend for myself, after high school. And I was independent after the age of 17, but there's a lot of people with much harder stories, but my story is the one I can grow from. My story is the one that I claim. My story is the one that I will celebrate because now today, every day I do good, every day I do better, every day I grow. It's a celebration of the story. Now I have my pen to the paper. I'm ready to write the rest of my story, and I want you to do the same. How are you going to claim your story?